The biggest lie in crypto? That you'll get rich overnight. It's a myth pushed by degens flaunting their once-in-a-lifetime win in the meme casino. But here's the truth. Success in crypto is no lottery ticket. It's about strategy and knowing what to avoid. I've spent over a decade in this space making my fair share of mistakes. So this is how I put together these 10 tips that can help anyone build a successful future in crypto. Now, these tips will give you the basics you need to not just survive in this space, but thrive in the long run with some solid foundations. And I'll teach you how to apply them properly so you can feel comfortable with every decision that you make in crypto. Now, crypto is full of hype, but if you want to survive, the first thing you need to do is protect yourself. And the truth is, this space is packed with scams that prey on new investors and even experienced ones who aren't careful. Falling for one can wipe out literally everything you've built in an instant, and I've seen it happen too many times. It's never easy to see. That's why the first tip is all about knowing how to spot a scam before it's too late. Now, scams in crypto come in all shapes and sizes. You have rug pulls, phishing schemes, fake projects, you name it. But the good news is most scams follow very similar patterns. And if you know what to look for, you can avoid them completely and pretty easily. So the first major red flag is anything that's promising lucrative returns or guaranteed lucrative returns. These are almost guaranteed to be unsustainable and often tend to be disguised as Ponzi schemes just waiting to burst. Another red flag is any cold messaging. If someone reaches out to you and starts asking for your seed phrase, stop messaging. It's 100% a scam. Nobody will ever need your seed phrase. And with that, if anyone is asking you to send them funds or anything like that, just don't do it. Phishing scams are everywhere. And if your email has been used a few times in crypto, then I'm sure you're used to the spam in your inbox by now. There are always scams pretending to be exchanges, wallets, or other platforms. Never trust them. Everything you do in crypto, you have to triple check. Always go to the official sources and verify anything before you move forward, and definitely before you click any links in these emails. Now, here's the golden rule. In crypto, don't trust, verify. Triple check everything, don't trust unsolicited messages, and never ever share sensitive information like your seed phrases. By just keeping these simple red flags in mind, you'll save yourself a ton of heartache. There's obviously a lot more to talk about when avoiding scams, but that's a whole other video in itself. Let's move on to tip number 2, DeFi, otherwise known as decentralized finance. DeFi is one of the most exciting and transformative aspects of crypto, but it's also a space where understanding the basics is crucial. If you don't know how to navigate DeFi safely, you could easily get burned. So at its core, decentralized finance, or again, DeFi, is about cutting out intermediaries, banks, brokers, and other middlemen, and giving you complete control over your financial activity. With DeFi, you can lend, borrow, trade, and earn interest directly on the blockchain using smart contracts to automate everything. DeFi opens up a world of opportunities. You can earn higher yields than with traditional banks. You can trade assets without a centralized exchange and access financial services without the need for credit checks. But with great opportunities come great risks, and navigating DeFi requires caution and knowledge. And there are a few things you need to make sure you're aware of before diving in. So if you're new to DeFi, don't go all in right away. Start small, learn the basics, experiment with well-known platforms like Uniswap, Aave, or Curve, and get comfortable with concepts like liquidity pools and staking. DeFi is also full of experimental projects, but not all of them are safe. Focus on established platforms with strong track records. A good starting point of finding these is using DeFi Llama, which lists many reputable projects. Also, you need to understand smart contracts, as these are what power DeFi, but they're not foolproof. Bugs or exploits can lead to huge losses. Make sure the projects you interact with have undergone rigorous security audits. How do you find that info? Check out this video for more on that. If you're providing liquidity in a pool, you'll encounter something called impermanent loss. This happens when the value of your assets in the pool changes compared to just holding them. It's one of the most misunderstood aspects of DeFi, and also by now there are a few platforms that help protect against impermanent loss. But regardless, you need to make sure that you know what you're getting into, as you may think you're making money yield farming, but you could actually be losing out when it comes to impermanent loss. Usually that's realized when you make your withdrawals. DeFi has already made waves. Take Uniswap, for instance, a decentralized exchange that allows anyone to trade tokens without needing a centralized exchange. Or consider Aave, which lets users lend and borrow crypto while earning interest. These platforms are just the beginning of what's possible in DeFi, but like all powerful tools, it's only as good as your ability to use it wisely. Start small, use a different wallet, and never go all in. Which brings us on to our next tip, staying calm. It is so easy to get caught up in the hype in this space, and even I still get lost in it sometimes. It's part of the fun. But especially when there's a trending meme coin, some crazy new project everyone is raving about, or when Bitcoin is flying past 100K. But here's the thing. Letting your emotions take over can lead to impulsive decisions, and in crypto, impulsive decisions are usually expensive decisions and regrets in the making. So why is staying calm so important? Because crypto prices can skyrocket or plummet within hours. And the emotional roller coaster that comes with it can easily cloud your judgment. Whether it's FOMO, which is fear of missing out, or panic selling, these knee-jerk reactions often lead to losses. Staying calm allows you to make decisions based on logic and facts, not emotion. It helps you stick to your plan, stay focused on your long-term goals, and avoid being swept away by the noise. So there are a few steps that you can take to stay calm in the market, starting before you even invest, and that's to decide on your strategy. Are you in it for the long term or short term gains? Set clear goals for when you buy, sell, or hold, and stick to them. Even when emotions are running high, you always stick to your original investment plan. Second is to limit your exposure. Only invest what you can afford to lose. If you've put in money that you can't afford to see drop, every price dip will feel like a crisis. Keeping your exposure manageable will help you maintain perspective. Third, be careful who you follow. The crypto space thrives on hype, and social media influencers and endless chatter can overwhelm you. Follow reliable sources, but don't let the constant buzz dictate your decisions. The fourth tip, one of the most important things you can do, is to take a break. It's easy to obsess over price charts and market trends, but that constant vigilance can increase your stress. Take breaks from watching the market and trust that you've made informed decisions that will see you through. And my final way to stay calm is to diversify your portfolio. By spreading your investments across different assets, you reduce the impact of a single coin or project crashing. Diversification provides peace of mind and helps you stay balanced. One thing to remember is back in the 2017 bull run, many people jumped into the market as Bitcoin hit new all-time highs after new all-time highs. They bought at the peak, hoping the price would keep climbing, only to watch it crash shortly after. The panic selling that followed caused massive losses. Those who stayed calm, avoided emotional decisions, and focused on the bigger picture ended up recovering and profiting in the long run. Crypto is exciting and it's easy to get swept up in the chaos, but staying calm is one of the most powerful tools you can have as an investor. Take a deep breath, trust your plan, and remember, in this space, patience is often rewarded. So with that said, let's take a look at our next tip as it relates to staying calm. Market cycles. The crypto market moves in cycles. It's one of the most important concepts to understand if you want to succeed in this space. These cycles are often driven by multiple factors like market sentiment, tech developments, and economic trends. And recognizing them can help you understand the markets better and avoid making any rash decisions. So a market cycle is the natural rise and fall of prices in a market, typically made up of 4 stages. First, we have the accumulation phase. Prices are low and sentiment is cautious. This is where long-term investors begin accumulating assets quietly. That's followed by usually a run-up phase where prices start to climb, driven by growing optimism. This is when hype begins to build. And then we reach peak euphoria. Prices hit their highest point, everyone's talking about it, and FOMO is rampant. New investors flood in, driving prices even higher. That inevitably leads to a decline. The bubble bursts, prices drop, and panic sets in. Many sell at a loss and the market resets. Understanding where we are in a cycle is critical to making informed decisions. Because if you are able to recognize market cycles, this helps you avoid emotional decisions, like we just talked about, like buying at the peak or selling at the bottom. It also allows you to position yourself for long-term gains by taking advantage of low prices during accumulation phases and adding to your positions, and then securing your profits during peaks, which allows you to rinse and repeat that cycle. And if you take a look at Bitcoin's history, after reaching $20,000 in 2017, it crashed to around $3,000 by 2018. Many thought it was dead. But those who understood the market cycle saw this as an accumulation phase, an opportunity. By 2021, Bitcoin hit $69,000, rewarding those who stayed patient and followed the cycle. Understanding market cycles isn't just about timing. It's about knowing how to manage your emotions, make informed decisions, and position yourself for long-term success. And when you're accumulating during these phases, you need to know how to store it. And that brings us to tip number 5, self-custody. One of the most important lessons that every crypto investor needs to learn is the importance of self-custody. If you don't control your keys, you don't control your crypto. It's as simple as that. Depending on centralized exchanges or third parties to hold your assets might seem convenient, but it exposes you to significant counterparty risks, as the collapse of FTX proved it all too clearly. And that was far from the first centralized exchange to go down. How can we forget about Mt. Gox, Cryptsy, Cryptopia, Quadriga CX? The list goes on. Self-custody means taking full ownership and control of your crypto assets by managing your private keys. With self-custody, your funds are stored in wallets that you control, rather than being held by a centralized exchange or service. This is the essence of not your keys, not your crypto mantra. As when you leave your crypto on centralized exchanges, you're trusting that the exchange will remain solvent and secure and ultimately give you your coins back. FTX is a prime example of what can go wrong. Customers who held funds on the exchange lost billions when it collapsed, highlighting the dangers of depending on third parties. Exchanges are also prime targets for hackers because they store large amounts of crypto in centralized wallets. Even worse, governments or exchanges themselves can freeze your funds during disputes or regulatory crackdowns. Self-custody gives you complete control over your funds. No one else can access, freeze, or restrict your crypto if you hold your private keys securely. Exchanges are great for trading, but don't count on them as your safe storage solution. And with self-custody, you need to ensure that you stick to strict security practices to really make sure your private keys are actually safe. Transfer your crypto to a non-custodial wallet like Bitbox or Trezor. These wallets give you full control of your private keys. And one of the more misunderstood things is the importance of keeping your private key or seed phrase safe, as these are the master key to your wallet. Never share it with anyone and store it in a safe place, offline location. Avoid keeping it digitally stored as it's vulnerable to hacks. That means taking a photo, having it as an email or on your notepad on your computer. Another thing you can do is use a combination of hot wallets and cold wallets. Keep larger amounts in cold wallets to reduce exposure to online threats, and smaller amounts in hot wallets where you will be making more regular transactions. And just as a reminder as to why self-custody is so important, let me remind you about FTX. It was one of the largest crypto exchanges until its collapse in 2022. Billions of dollars in customer funds were misused and ultimately lost. The incident was a wake-up call for the entire crypto industry, and once again reminding everyone why self-custody is critical. As many who practice self-custody avoided the chaos entirely, proving the value of controlling your own crypto, as it's not just a choice, it's a responsibility. By taking control of your crypto, you're protecting yourself from the risks of centralized exchanges and ensuring your financial independence and protecting that original vision of why crypto was created. So now that we've covered custody, let's move on to the most unbeatable strategy in crypto to win long term. Buy spot and hold. This is one of the most simple yet most effective strategies. It's also the least stressful. What I mean by that is purchasing crypto directly without borrowing money or using leverage and holding it for the long term. While trading and leverage might sound tempting with the promises of quick wins, more often than not, they lead to losses and a lot of stress, especially for beginners. Buying spot significantly lowers your risk because you're only investing money that you actually have. Leverage, on the other hand, involves borrowing funds to amplify your position, and this can very quickly wipe you out if the market moves against you. Another reason to focus on buying and holding is that it aligns with the long-term growth and outlook on crypto. You have to remember, it is still in its early stages of adoption, and by holding onto your investments over time, you can benefit from the overall growth of the market. Rather than stressing over short-term price movements, it's a much more peaceful way to invest and live. Leverage and day trading might seem exciting, but they come with serious downsides, and it's just gambling at the end of the day. An extremely small amount of traders are actually profitable. The key to success with this strategy is focusing on the fundamentals of the projects that you invest in. Look for solid, long-term opportunities like Bitcoin and Ethereum that have shown resilience over time, and make sure you understand the technology you're investing into. Be patient, trust the process, and avoid the temptation to chase quick profits. Some of the biggest gains in crypto come from holding through market cycles, not from trying to time every price movement. Buying spot and holding might not sound as exciting as trading or using leverage, but it's one of the most reliable ways to succeed in crypto. Focus on accumulating assets you believe in, avoid unnecessary risks, and trust the process. You'll realize over time that you are outperforming most of those traders. And you get a decent night's sleep. So the next tip is a boring but very important one, and that's crypto regulations. I'll keep this one short and brief as it's not the most exciting, but it is extremely important. You really must make sure you're up to date with the regulations in the jurisdiction in which you live. I know crypto was built to disrupt and definitely doesn't need regulations to survive, but the reality is that where you live dictates how you can interact with it, especially if you're only using centralized platforms. What taxes you need to pay, and what you need to report. The primary thing you need to be concerned about is taxes and what exactly gets classified as a taxable event. Even some basic transactions can even end up being classified as one, and it can become a real headache when it comes to tax season. One of the best recommendations here is to find yourself a crypto-friendly country such as Portugal or the UAE and explore your options. If you need any help with that, please feel free to reach out to us at learningcrypto.com, where we have a community that has a lot of experience in all of these areas. But anyway, let's move on to the next tip, and one of the most important, tokenomics. This is one of the most important concepts to grasp when evaluating any crypto project, as it can affect the token in many different ways. Tokenomics is essentially the economic model behind a cryptocurrency. It explains how a token works, how it's distributed, and what gives it value. If you don't understand the tokenomics of a project, you're essentially investing blind, and there might be a sudden unlock that doubles or even triples the circulating supply of that coin, which suddenly and essentially is diluting your holding. Good tokenomics can definitely make or break a project. For example, a well-designed token economy incentivizes users and builders, ensures fair distribution, and creates a sustainable ecosystem. On the flip side, poor tokenomics can lead to inflation, low demand, or even completely fail. You need to know how and why a token should grow in value over time, or why it won't. There are a few key factors to look at when assessing tokenomics. First, understand the supply. How many tokens are there, and how many will there eventually be? If a token has an unlimited or a rapidly increasing supply, it can lead to inflation and reduce its value. On the other hand, a token with a fixed or deflationary supply, like Bitcoin, often has stronger long-term value propositions and isn't subjected to inflation. You can check the basics of this on a site like coinmarketcap.com or my favorite, coingecko.com. Next, examine the distribution. Who owns the tokens? If a small group of people or entities controls the majority, that is a big red flag. It means they have the power to manipulate the market or dump their holdings, which can cause prices to crash. A fair and transparent distribution is always a better sign of a healthy project. It also tells you a lot about the intentions of the creators of the project. You don't want to be investing into something where one of the developers owns like 80% of the supply, as I'm sure you've heard of some of the meme coin rug pull stories. A great resource for this information can be found at masari.io. Also, for tokenomics, you have to consider the use case. Does a token have real utility within its own ecosystem? For example, is it used for paying transaction fees, staking, or governance? Tokens that serve a clear purpose are far more likely to retain value than those that exist purely for speculation. There are a lot of projects out there that don't actually need a token, but they launch one just for the financial incentive and to fund the project. Finally, take a close look at the roadmap and incentives. How does the project plan to reward participants? Are there mechanisms to encourage long-term holding? Or is the focus solely on quick profits? A sustainable incentive structure is critical for the long-term success of any project overall. Understanding tokenomics isn't just about spotting red flags, it's about finding projects with real potential. By doing your homework, you'll avoid the flashy but hollow projects that pack their white papers with buzzwords and focus on ones that actually have a chance to succeed. Tokenomics might sound technical, but once you start looking at a few projects, you'll see patterns emerge. It's a skill that pays off big time in crypto investing, and even just knowing these basics is enough to start getting by and get that basic understanding. So now we're coming up to the final 2 tips, and also the 2 most important. Tip number 9 is one of the most critical in crypto, DYOR, or do your own research. You've probably heard this phrase 1,000 times, but it's repeated so often because it's essential. In a space full of hype, misinformation, and scams, relying on your own due diligence is the best way to make informed decisions. And over time, this is how you become a crypto expert. At the end of the day, it comes down to you as to what decision you make in the market. You can't blame anyone else. You can't just trust influencers, headlines, or social media posts. Everyone has their own agenda, whether it's to pump a token they're holding or simply to chase clout. To succeed in crypto, you need to cut through the noise and dig into the details yourself. It's good to have trusted sources that you find reliable and consistent, but even with that, you still need to do your own due diligence and not just solely rely on any one person. So what does doing your own research actually mean? Well, it starts with understanding the fundamentals of a project. Look at their white paper, their roadmap, and their team, and ask yourself, what problem is this project solving? Does it have a clear use case or utility? If you can't explain why a project exists and how it works, then you probably shouldn't be holding their token, much less giving them any of your money. I've always found it best to focus on projects I'm actually interested in and focus on those. Another key part of DYOR is understanding the market for the token. Is there real demand for it, or is it purely speculative? Projects with real-world applications and a growing user base tend to have more sustainable value than ones driven solely by hype. Also, don't forget to look at the community. A strong, active, and engaged community can be a good sign of a project's health and longevity. But be careful. Just because a project has a lot of noise on social media doesn't mean it's legit. Bots and paid promoters can make any project look popular. So when it comes to that, check their X profiles and see the replies and interactions. Does it seem organic, or are you noticing a lot of bots repeating the same junk and being really overly positive about the project? Finally, always cross-reference your sources. Don't rely on just one piece of information to make your entire decision. Use trusted platforms, again, like CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko, and other credible crypto news outlets like Crypto Tips to verify what you're hearing. DYOR is your shield in the crypto world. It protects you from scams, bad investments, and costly mistakes. By taking time to understand what you're investing in, you set yourself up for success long term. And if you don't fully understand something, then stay away from it until you do. Don't let that FOMO kick in. Now that you know the basics of doing your own research, let's move on to the final and most important tip. Tip number 10, and that is why crypto was created. Too often it's forgotten why this whole space was created. It was born out of the 2008 financial crisis, and even in the Bitcoin Genesis block, there is the quote. The Times, 03 January 2009, Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks, which is a message from Satoshi in regards to the bailouts and the corrupt system in which the world lives under, still to this day. When there's hype and meme coins being created, people always forget that and just focus on number go up. But it's really important to look back at why Bitcoin was created and that crypto is here to disrupt, not conform. The real cypherpunks have dedicated their lives to using cryptography to build privacy tools to put the power back into the hands of the people, so we no longer have to live under a rigged system that benefits only the people in power. But that message is often forgotten. If people aren't reminded of that, it's really not impossible for crypto to end up a dystopian nightmare where every transaction is tracked and controlled, giving us a CBDC, which really has the opposite effect of the original goal. And that, my friends, is why I spent years writing my book, Why Crypto? I've been in this space for over a decade now, and I've put everything I've learned into that to help educate and remind people why this space is here and the opportunity that we have in front of us to create a new world that's no longer rigged and in favor of an elite few. So if you want to check it out, there's a link below in the description. I'd love to hear what you think of it. That wraps up my 10 crypto tips. I hope you found this useful. Let me know in the comments below your top crypto tip. Let's see if we can all learn something new.